My daughter makes my boyfriend coffee every morning, irons his shirts, and once tried to sit on his lap when she had the chance. Now he's furious and wants her out of the house. I've been living with my daughter from my last relationship and my new boyfriend for a while now. He moved in about 6 months ago, and things seemed fine at first. My daughter's 17, and I figured she'd take some time to adjust to having a new guy around the house. When he showed up with his boxes and that awkward smile, I thought we'd all just find a rhythm eventually. The place is small, 2 bedrooms, a cramped living room, and a kitchen that barely fits 2 people at once, but it's home. I work long hours at the office, and he's got his job at the warehouse, so we don't step on each other's toes too much. From the very start, my daughter started acting different around him. She'd wake up early, which isn't like her at all, and make him coffee every morning. I'd come downstairs, still half asleep, and there she'd be, handing him a mug like it was some kind of ritual. He'd thank her, and I just nodded off, thinking she was trying to be nice. She'd even ask him how he liked it, black, no sugar, and memorize it like it was her job. I didn't say anything because I thought it was her way of warming up to him. After my last relationship fell apart, she hadn't exactly been thrilled about me dating again, so this felt like progress. Then she started doing more. She'd dig through the pantry and make his favorite snacks, those little peanut butter crackers he likes, without me asking her to. I'd get home from work, and there'd be a plate of them waiting on the counter, just for him. She'd grin and say she saw him eating them once, so she figured she'd keep it stocked. I'd laugh it off, thinking it was sweet. She's always been a thoughtful kid, even if she's got her moody teenage moments. I told myself she was just trying to bond with him, maybe make him feel like part of the family. It didn't stop there though. She started ironing his shirts for work. I'd walk into the living room and see her at the ironing board, pressing creases into his button-ups like she was auditioning for some housewife gig. She'd hum to herself, totally focused, and he'd come in, grab the shirt, and mutter a quick thanks. I asked her once why she was bothering, and she just shrugged and said she wanted to help out. I didn't push it. My ex never got this kind of treatment from her, so I figured it was her way of accepting this new setup. Looking back, I probably should have paid more attention. Things started getting more noticeable after a couple of months. My daughter didn't just stick to the coffee and shirts, she'd wait for him to get home from work. I'd be in the kitchen, heating up leftovers or scrolling through my phone, and she'd perch herself by the window, peeking out every time a car rolled by. The second his truck pulled into the driveway, she'd jump up and open the door for him. He'd walk in, looking tired, and she'd be right there, asking how his day went. He'd give short answers, stuff like fine, or long, and head to the couch. I'd watch from the corner of my eye, not sure what to make of it. She'd linger around him after that. If he was watching TV, she'd plop down nearby, even if she had homework piling up in her room. She'd ask him random questions, what he thought of the game, if he liked his boss, stuff that didn't need an answer. He'd respond sometimes, but mostly he'd just grunt or nod. I'd tell her to give him space after a shift, but she'd roll her eyes and say she was just being friendly. I didn't argue much because I didn't want to turn it into a fight. She's stubborn, and I've learned to pick my battles. Then she started commenting on how he looked. It wasn't anything big at first, just little things like, "That shirt looks good on you." When he grabbed one she'd ironed, he'd brush it off, and I'd barely register it. But it kept happening. She'd say his haircut made him look younger or that he should wear blue more often because it matched his eyes. I'd hear it and think it was odd, but I'd convince myself she was just being a teenager, awkward and trying to figure out how to talk to people. He didn't seem bothered, so I let it slide. One night, I caught her staring at him while he was eating dinner. I'd made spaghetti, and we were all at the table, rare for us to sit together like that. She wasn't eating, just watching him twirl pasta on his fork. I asked her what was up, and she blinked, said, "Nothing," and picked at her plate. He didn't say a word, just kept eating. I told myself it was nothing, that I was reading too much into it. She's my kid, and I didn't want to think anything weird was going on. But it stuck with me, that look on her face. The lap thing happened about 4 months in. We were all in the living room one Saturday. I'd been cleaning up, and he was sprawled out on the couch, scrolling through his phone. My daughter came in wearing one of her oversized hoodies, hair messy like she just rolled out of bed. She'd been quieter that week, and I thought maybe she was finally settling down with the extra attention she'd been giving him. I was wrong. She walked over to the couch, stood there for a second, then just dropped herself onto his lap. No warning, no nothing. He froze, phone still in his hand, and I stopped wiping down the coffee table. She laughed and said something about being playful, like it was a joke. He didn't laugh. He pushed her off, gently but firm, and told her to sit somewhere else. She got up, face red, and mumbled that she didn't mean anything by it. I watched the whole thing, not sure what to say. He looked at me, eyebrows raised, but didn't speak. I tried to smooth it over. I told her she was too old for that kind of stuff and that she needed to respect his space. She huffed, said it wasn't a big deal, and stormed off to her room. I looked at him, and he just shook his head, going back to his phone. I figured it was a one-off, some dumb teenage impulse. She's always been physical, hugs, leaning on me when we watch movies, so I chalked it up to her not knowing where the line was with him. I didn't bring it up again, and neither did he. After that, though, I started noticing how he'd shift when she was around. If she came into the room, he'd sit up straighter or move to the other side of the couch. He didn't say anything to me about it, but his body language changed. I'd catch him glancing at her, not in a creepy way, but like he was waiting for something else to happen. I kept telling myself it was fine, that she'd get over whatever phase this was. I didn't want to make it bigger than it needed to be. But it was there, that tension, and I couldn't unsee it. The blow-up came about a week after the lap incident. I got home late from work, tired and ready to crash. He was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his arms crossed, face tight. My daughter was in her room. I could hear her music through the door. He didn't say hi or ask about my day like he usually did. Instead, he just looked at me and said he couldn't do it anymore. I asked what he meant, and he told me my daughter's behavior had gone too far. He said he'd been patient, but he was done feeling uncomfortable in his own house. I stood there, still in my coat, not sure how to respond. He went on, saying it wasn't just the coffee or the shirts or even her waiting for him every day. It was all of it, piling up, and the lap thing had been the last straw. He said she was acting inappropriate, and he didn't want to deal with it anymore. I felt my stomach drop. I'd seen the stuff she was doing, but hearing him say it out loud made it real. I asked him to explain what he meant by inappropriate, hoping it was just a misunderstanding. He pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots. They were messages she'd sent him, stuff I hadn't known about. I scrolled through them, and my chest tightened. She'd written things like, "You looked good today," and "Wish I could hang out with you more," with little winking faces. One said, "Don't tell Mom, but you're kinda my favorite." They weren't outright crazy, but they were flirty, way too flirty for a 17-year-old to send her mom's boyfriend. He said she'd been texting him for weeks, and he'd ignored most of it until it got worse. I didn't know what to say. I asked him why he hadn't told me sooner, and he said he didn't want to cause drama. He thought she'd stop on her own, but she didn't. He told me he needed her gone by the weekend, or he was leaving. I felt my face get hot. I told him she was my kid, not some roommate I could just kick out. He didn't back down, just said he couldn't live like this and left the kitchen. I stood there, staring at his empty chair, the screenshots still burning in my head. I went to my daughter's room after he walked out. The music was still blasting, some pop song I didn't recognize. I knocked, but she didn't answer, so I opened the door. She was on her bed, scrolling through her phone, and barely looked up. I turned the music off and told her we needed to talk. She sat up, frowning, and asked what was wrong. I didn't ease into it, I just asked her about the messages. Her face went blank, and she said she didn't know what I was talking about. I showed her the screenshots he'd given me. She stared at them for a second, then said they weren't a big deal, just jokes. I asked her why she'd send stuff like that to him, and she shrugged, saying she was bored. I pressed her, telling her he was upset, that he thought she was crossing lines. She rolled her eyes and said he was overreacting, that she didn't mean anything by it. I told her it didn't matter what she meant, it mattered how it looked, and it looked bad. She got quiet after that. I asked her if there was more I didn't know about, and she didn't answer at first. Then she mumbled that she had a crush on him. My head started spinning. She said it fast, like she wanted to get it over with, admitted she liked him and was just playing around with the messages and the stuff she'd been doing. I asked her how long she'd felt that way, and she said a few months. She swore she didn't want anything to happen, that it was just a dumb feeling she couldn't shake. I didn't yell. I wanted to, but I didn't. I told her she'd made him uncomfortable, that he didn't see it as a game. She started tearing up, saying she didn't think it was that serious. I told her it was serious enough that he wanted her out of the house. Her eyes went wide, and she asked if I was kicking her out. I said I didn't know what I was doing yet, but she couldn't stay here acting like this. She wiped her face and turned away, and I left the room, my hands shaking. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying everything in my head, the coffee, the shirts, the messages, her sitting on his lap. It all looked different now, sharper, like I'd been blind to it before. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, while he slept on the couch. I could hear him shifting around out there, probably just as restless. My daughter's room stayed quiet, no music, no sign of her coming out. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to decide something fast. The next morning, I called her father. We split years ago, and he lives an hour away with his new wife. He's not perfect, barely sees her some months, but he's got a spare room, and I figured she could stay there for a bit. I told him what happened, keeping it short. She'd been inappropriate with my boyfriend, and things were tense. He didn't ask many questions, just said she could come if she wanted. I thanked him and hung up, feeling like I was passing her off instead of fixing it. I went to her room after that. She was awake, sitting on her bed with her knees pulled up, eyes puffy from crying. I told her she needed to pack a bag and go to her dad's for a while. She looked at me, stunned, and asked why I was choosing him over her. I said it wasn't about choosing, it was about boundaries, and she'd crossed them. She argued, saying it wasn't fair, that she didn't do anything that bad. I told her it didn't matter if she thought it was small, it mattered that he felt unsafe in his own home. She didn't say much after that. I watched her shove clothes into a duffel bag, jeans, a few shirts, her charger. She moved slow, like she was waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. I told her I'd drive her to her dad's that afternoon, and she nodded, not looking at me. I left her there to finish packing and went to the kitchen. He was at the table, drinking coffee she hadn't made this time, and didn't ask what I'd decided. I think he already knew. The drive to her dad's was silent. She sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her bag in the back. I kept my hands tight on the wheel, trying to focus on the road instead of the knot in my stomach. She didn't cry, didn't argue, just sat there, shut off. I wanted to say something, explain why this had to happen, but nothing came out. The radio stayed off, and the hum of the engine filled the space between us. When we got to her dad's place, he was waiting outside. His house is bigger than mine, a 2-story thing with a neat lawn his wife keeps up. He waved at me, and I nodded back. My daughter got out, grabbed her bag, and walked up to him without a word. He gave her a quick hug, and she disappeared inside. I stayed in the car, watching her go. He came over to my window and asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know, and he didn't push it. I drove off after that, leaving her behind. Back home, the house felt empty. Her room was still a mess, blankets tangled, a half-empty water bottle on the nightstand. I didn't clean it up. He was in the living room when I got in, watching some show with the volume low. I sat next to him, and he asked if she was gone. I said yes, and he nodded, like that was all he needed to hear. We didn't talk about it more than that. He put his arm around me, and I leaned into him, but it didn't feel like a win. I kept thinking about her face when she left, how she wouldn't look at me. I wondered if she hated me now, or if she'd get why I did it eventually. I didn't know if I'd made the right call or just the easiest one. The screenshots were still on my phone, and I deleted them that night, not wanting to see them again. But I couldn't delete the memory of her admitting that crush, or the way he looked at me when he showed me the proof.